In this video, I'm going to show you how easy it is to get a perfectly level swash on the Protos Max using the included swash leveling tool. First, a few tips about mounting the servos. Follow the directions in the manual about when to install these servos. I'd mounted my beck and the brain before mounting these servos, which made it impossible to get to the bottom screws. So I took all that off, and one tip is when you're mounting those rear servos, getting these servo spacers on while also putting the screws on is a bit challenging. So I suggest gluing that piece onto the back of the servo. Not on the front. I already made that mistake. So I just put a little bit of CA on and mounted those on the servo, which made it a lot easier to put them in. Another tip is to put on the servo horn adapter onto the servo before you mount the servo. When you put on the servo horn, tighten it down, pretty good, but allow for it to still move freely on that servo horn adapter. And then power up the electronics. Plug in the brain, open up the software, and navigate to the swash plate setup screen. If you're on a default setup or a new setup, all of your values should be at 0. And at this point, go ahead and verify that the servos are moving in the correct direction. It's probably best to do this before you connect the links. So I've actually already gone through this step. If they're moving in the wrong direction, just keep clicking the servo reverse button and check for positive and negative. Once positive goes positive, negative goes negative, then you know you've got that setting correct. Okay, so next step is to put your collective in the middle so that the servos are centered. Then move the swash plate up by hand, and you'll see it'll just move right up since these aren't torqued down yet. And put the swash leveling tool on the main shaft. Make sure that's sitting perfectly flush on the main plate here, and apply pressure downward on the swash plate to make sure it's all flush with the swash leveling tool. At this point, the swash is level with the frame of the helicopter, which is cool because it doesn't matter what kind of surface you're on. You can still move the heli around, but this is still going to be square to the frame. Now you can apply pressure to the swash plate, and then also make sure that the horn is flush against the servo horn adapter, and go ahead and torque these down. The front servo is a little bit tricky. I suggest using a small Allen key to get in there. So just torque it down enough to where it's not moving on its own. Again, make sure that the servo horn is flush against that servo adapter. Torque that down, just enough. And then what you can do is move the collective up, and use your normal driver to put the finishing touches on that bolt. Okay, that's all good. Remove the swash leveling tool. And now you have a perfectly level swash and 0 subtrim in the brain software. and just checking the pitch on the head using the engraved pitch indicator lines. I'm just using the manual specified links on these links, and this one is dead center, and this one is also dead center. So my head setup is complete at this point.